ABR class of 2019 started in February and would see 17 bears come to our facility. And that would be from 4 different states, from Louisiana, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee. The first bear to arrive was bear number 282, and he was admitted on Valentine's Day in 2019. This was a male yearling, weighed only 12 pounds. He'd lost most of his fur, and he was observed by a passerby on the side of the road, and honestly did not even look like a bear. He was almost hard to identify as to what he was. His facial fur was gone, and about 60% of the fur on his body. And that was all from malnutrition. They checked him at UT to see if it could be mange or if it could be parasites, but in the end, it was all a result of severe malnutrition. We had anticipated when this bear arrived at ABR that he would be with us for a long time, possibly a year. We just did not see that he could recover that quickly, but he surprised all of us. And with good nutrition, with the bear diet pellets, which are high in good nutrition, and just good natural food that bears need, he recovered very quickly, and we started seeing that fur covering his body. And so he thrived at ABR, and in no time he had that beautiful thick fur coat, and then was able to return to his home in Kentucky on May the 24th, 2019, weighing 73.6 pounds. Many of you remember that he was in the wild enclosure with 2 female yearlings, and he grew and matured at such a fast rate that he was displaying a little more attention than we would like for him to give to those female yearlings. So we knew that at that point it was time for Hartley to return to the wild. So he did that in May of 2019. The next 2 bears came in on March the 1st, and they were flown in on the private plane from a supporter that we call Bear Force One, and that was bear 283 and 284, Boudreaux and Beignet cubs that had to be rescued from a flooded den in Louisiana. The little female was a very fragile 1-pound cub who had several medical setbacks while she was here at ABR, just trying to get her to eat, trying to get her to gain weight. And then after she was in the cub house and then in the acclimation pen, she sort of got a little upset and couldn't climb back down from the platform, went on about a 3-day hunger strike, and we had to pull her back into the cub house and then again put her back in the acclimation pen. This time she was a little more confident and was ready to climb up and down, and then eventually released into the wild enclosure. While in the wild enclosure, she broke her leg, not once, but twice. The first time she had to have surgery, had some growth plate. It was on the growth plate, had some pins in her leg, and she recovered. And then a couple of months later, broke it on the same leg again, but on the opposite side of the growth plate. This time it didn't require surgery, and she was able to recover from that. But it was decided that perhaps it'd be best if she overwintered with us to just make sure she was fully recovered and give her much more time to heal. So she and her brother and South Carolina bear that was with us were going to overwinter with us. And it was anticipated they would leave sometime in March of 2020. As you know, the COVID-19 pandemic came about around that time, and their release was delayed because states were not allowing any travel back and forth, and Louisiana was not allowed to travel to come get them. But finally in May, they were able to return to Tennessee to pick up their bears, and South Carolina came to pick up theirs. And the 2 cubs that arrived in March the 1st, weighing 1 pound and 2.5 pounds, left ABR weighing 127 pounds and 90 pounds. So it's rare that we get to see have bears with us for that extended period of time. But this is one of those rare moments that bears did overwinter with us and actually had to stay a little bit longer. The next bear that arrived also came in March. This was bear 285, admitted on March the 19th. We'd heard of a bear that had been seen around the Highland Manor in Townsend, Tennessee. And so a member of the Townsend Police Department actually rescued this bear. The little 9-pound female yearling was emaciated and was struggling to survive. And while she was at ABR, she spent time with Bear 282 that we just spoke of, Bear 287, Daffodil Bear, another yearling, and 292, Iris, another female yearling, prior to being released back into the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, weighing 64 pounds. On March the 27th, a male yearling was observed alone on the Finley Cane Trail in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The little male yearling weighed 9 pounds, was emaciated, in very poor health from malnutrition, as you can see from the picture. You can just look at his eyes in the picture and see how bad this little guy felt. He'd been struggling to survive on his own for quite some time. He was severely anemic and hypoglycemic. Unfortunately, he passed away the morning after his arrival at ABR and did not survive. Some bears manage to overcome malnutrition and starvation, and some of them have just been out there fighting so long they just don't have any fight left in them. And that was the case of Bear 286, Oliver Bear. The very next day, after Bear 286 arrived, we admitted Bear 287, Daffodil, a female yearling. This was another starving yearling, and she was found wandering on a road in Bristol, Tennessee. That's up in the northeast corner of Tennessee. She weighed 11 pounds and again was severely malnourished, anemic, hypoglycemic, but she also had a prolapsed rectum, and she had to have surgery for that. She was not expected to survive. She spent about a week in the ICU unit at the University of Tennessee before she was actually able to come back to ABR. And no one expected this bear to survive. And I remember seeing the first pictures of her in ICU at UT, and none of us ever expected her to survive. But surprise, surprise, she did. She thrived. She was, although she was a little standoffish and kept to herself at first, she eventually bonded with Bear 285, Sweetie Bear, and 292, Iris Bear. And then by August, she weighed 84 pounds and was able to return to her home near Sullivan County, Tennessee. And this is a picture of a beautiful grown daffodil bear about a month before she was released. In early April, another malnourished yearling was found on a hiking trail in the Big South Fork area in Pickett County, Tennessee. And I have real memories of this bear. We had to actually hold the bowl, and you can see this is a picture of us, and we were actually had to put the bowl in front of her face and even prop her right up under her mouth in order to get her to try to eat and encourage her to eat. And she weighed 16 pounds. Of course, keep in mind, this is a yearling and this is April. And she fought hard to survive. She tried to eat. We continued to try to give her what we could, even having to syringe feed her at times, and even actually having to just almost climb in the pen with her to try to get her to eat. And that tells you how weak she is, because you would not be able to get that close to a yearling. So she fought hard, but in the end, she could not overcome the effects of the prolonged malnutrition. And 4 days later, she passed away. And this was Bear 288, Tulip Bear. On that same day, a sow was found dead in the Cades Cove area of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. and three tiny cubs were discovered in a den nearby. And they were dubbed the Berry triplets for their names: Blueberry, Huckleberry, and Blackberry, admitted on April the 7th. And they were a triple threat from the start at ABR. They all weighed right around 3 pounds, and they, as many of you remember, I think we all said those were the most destructive triplets we've ever had. And they just absolutely would tear down any sapling they came in contact with. So lots of fun stories about these guys. They were a lot of fun to watch. I remember when they came in, they were not fun to take care of when they first came in. Only the female really actually took to a bottle. The other two had to be syringe fed. Bear 290, Huckleberry, occasionally would take the bottle, but he was a very blustery little cub. And so usually you had to wear some thick gloves when trying to feed these guys. They were so rambunctious. And the little 291 Blackberry never really did adapt to the bottle, so we had to syringe feed him. So all those feedings that go on 24 hours around the clock could take about an hour and a half to 2 hours sometimes, just trying to get them to either latch onto the bottle or syringe feed them. So they were just a handful from the start. But I know they brought many of our supporters a lot of entertainment in watching their antics. But all of us, after 8 months with them, were lucky to still be standing and still actually have a working facility. They were so rambunctious, but they were all successfully returned home in December, weighing 77, 85, and 84 pounds. So here's a picture of the Berry triplets. They used to love to suckle on one another's ear. Sometimes we see that among siblings or just among cubs that are enclosed together. So this is one of those pictures where the three of them, they were quite a bonded unit, and they were suckling on one another's ears for comfort. And I believe that's actually ended up being the female on the bottom of the pile this time. In May, on May the 14th, an orphan female yearling arrived from Sevier County, Tennessee. She weighed 19 pounds. She was dehydrated and malnourished, but she recovered very quickly. This was Bear 292, dubbed Iris Bear. Cute little bear. Initially, she was very standoffish, kept to herself, but then eventually we did see her sleeping, foraging, and playing with her new friends, which were Sweetie and Daffodil, bears 285 and 287, in the wild enclosure. Iris Bear weighed 79 pounds when she returned home to Sevier County in August. In early June, we heard about two orphaned 5-month-old siblings that were found in Polk County, Tennessee. The little female weighed 4 pounds, and her brother weighed over 6 pounds. And the funny thing was the female was much smaller and ended up being much smaller than any of the other cubs of the year that were here. But she was the dominant of the two siblings. And then when she was in a wild enclosure with other cubs of the year, even with Bear 283, Boudreaux, who was the largest cub of the year that we had in residence, she was absolutely the boss of all of them. And she and Boudreaux formed a really special bond. And so where you saw one, you usually saw the other. So it was quite a comical team of the two of them. But the siblings were also very bonded as well, and they weighed 81 pounds. That was our little dandelion that was so small, weighed 81 pounds, and 94 pounds, her brother Bentley, when they were returned back to Polk County on December the 17th. The next bear that arrived was the lone survivor of an automobile accident in South Carolina. Her mother and two siblings died as a result of being hit by an automobile. And this little female cub of the year weighed 19 pounds. She was actually in good health. Mom had done a really good job taking care of her and the other cubs, so she was quite healthy. She had the honor of being flown also by Bear Force One to Tennessee. She overwintered with bears 283 and 284, and of course, her spring release was delayed due to COVID-19. But she was finally returned to South Carolina in May, weighing 107 pounds, and she was given the name Jessamine. On July the 5th, two female siblings arrived after their mother was killed by an automobile in Sevier County, Tennessee. They weighed 14 and 13 pounds. The sisters were underweight, but they were in overall good health. And this was bears 296 and 297, Bluebell and Marigold. They joined 293, 294, and 295 in a wild enclosure, and all three became fast friends. The girls were released in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in early December, weighing 88 and 81 pounds. The last bear to be admitted in 2019 was bear 298. This was on October the 9th, and this was a healthy male yearling that was hit by a car in Jefferson County, Tennessee. He was examined and treated by our vets at UT, but unfortunately, he had injuries that were too severe to overcome and had to be euthanized the following day. So, we had three bears that we lost due to automobile accident or malnutrition and starvation, but all of the others in 2019 were able to be successfully released back to the wild and are back to their home states. And so, still some great success stories from 2019. So, we have a nice video for you of the ABR class of 2019.